Hi, well, welcome to the very last lecture of the Marxian economics course. As you can see on the screen, we have only 9 slides for this lecture. This lecture is basically a lecture where I will kind of, especially in the first part, summarize and basically highlight certain aspects of the previous lectures, certain aspects of those lectures, especially the points basically of those lectures, which are related to the way the capitalist system might end. At a certain point in the history. In a way, in this lecture, we do what we have done in the first part of the family-related lecture, where we have seen what lied before capitalist system and how the capitalist system, the previous system, has transformed to capitalist system. And now we will see the other side of it. I mean, what might be the end of the capitalist system and what might be the system that will come after this end. Of course, here we are basically looking to the Marxian predictions and Marxian views, going all the way back to Marx, but also to some extent later views on this, and some conflicting views also. And in case of the new system also, we will see what Marx, we will see basically on the tract Marx has provided us, but we will also go beyond that view also. And in some ways also this lecture will be kind of a summary also because of this last lecture, and it's covering also a lot of track. That's why also I wanted to rather have a summary on it than going into technical details in more complex sense, because covering so much track with technical details would be more confusing, especially for the last lecture. But if you are interested on special aspects, I provided, this is one of the topics on which I have provided a lot of reading. So, and some of them contains technical details, including equations even. So you are welcome to look to them if you are interested. Especially I would suggest you to Arrighi's article, which is basically on the world system theory, world system schools predictions on them. How current capitalist, current world global economic system might end, basically, and evaluating a lot of the late developments of the late capitalist system. And I might even talk about that a little bit. Anyway, let's start. So, as a starting point, maybe I should say also this. Marx and Engels, this is actually for the socialist part. I mean, they bring their analysis all the way up to the end of capitalist system, and they don't go much further than it. But basically, dialectical and historical materialism gives you the basic outline of their views. We have seen that in the beginning of the course. But if I would remind you that, basically, material systems and the global economic and social system is one of those material systems. They usually they contain a certain system with certain relations between the members of those material systems and structures, social structures. I mean, which means that market, which is not an institution, is also a social structure, basically. Those systems, they contain contradictions, which means certain elements that are trying to destroy the system. And those contradictions are usually contained, but as systems develops, those contradictions become less and less containable, and in the end, those contradictions lead to end of that system, and in return, a new system will be founded, which might eliminate those contradictions, or maybe more better to contain those contradictions. New system will contain new contradictions, even if it can eliminate the old contradictions. That's the thing. I mean, you cannot completely eliminate the contradictions. You cannot build a social system without contradictions, or a material system without contradictions, in that sense. So, capitalist system has this main contradiction, which is the contradiction of the classes, basically, which it takes from the previous systems, but kind of it simplified the contradiction. While there were many different classes, now there are two different classes that are actually, according to Marx's analysis, that are concentrating, I think, basically. We might question that. We might ask whether maybe how integral the capitalist and the labor class is in itself. Do we have another segmentation within the labor class between the skilled and unskilled labor force? That's a question, and actually my research is kind of concentrated on this question also. But this is the core Marxian analysis, at least. I mean, you have two different distinct classes, basically. And the problem between those two distinct classes are increasing. Let's say the distance between those two different classes increasing, and as time develops in the previous eras, the contradiction between those two different classes could be contained, because the system is expanding and it can to some extent at least stabilize, maybe even to some extent decrease the exploitation. I mean, and both material conditions of both of those two groups can increase, but as time passes, the system tends to come to a point where the profit rates are continuously decreasing, and in order to contain this decreasing profit rate, the exploitation rate starts to increase, but even as the exploitation rate continues to increase, the profit rates still continue to decrease according to Marx. So this will intensify the crisis between these two different classes, and the decrease in profit rate is pretty much is created by the interdependence of different agents in the world economic system. As this interdependence increases, you buy more goods from more commodities, inputs from the outside world, which increases your costs. This raw material intermediate costs. Those intermediate costs, the cost of the intermediate costs contribute nothing to the GDP, but for the companies collectively, they are still costs. Just like debts are cancelling each other in general, but as indebtedness of the system, indebtedness of the people in the system increases, the system becomes more fragile. Because I am indebted to you, you are indebted to other person. If one person fails to pay the debt, then all of us will deprive from the income, and we won't find out. Find out how we can clear the lost income. Some of us might go bankrupt because we might not be. Our income might not cover our costs, so we might need to close our company. That won't be a solution, because as a result, the demand in the economy will fall, and in a way, indebtedness might be a problem, even though in theory all debts cancel each other. Similarly, this intermediate costs are a problem that's created by the capitalist system. If you look to the overall system, you might have the impression that this should not be a problem, but within the system there might be very well a significant problem. So this is one thing. So this falling profit rates, as well as this lack of coordination in the system, which creates increasingly larger crisis. This is actually the last part. We have this increase in organic composition of capital, realization problem. As system gets larger, this realization problem might get more severe, especially as companies are increasingly continuously increase their capacities and need the demand to absorb this capacity. As competition gets more fierce, this race to increase the capacity will get higher and higher, and demand will not catch up necessarily, even at the time when you have these advertisements and this consumer society. It's not that much possible to, it might not be that much possible to increase demand that much. Basically, there might be a limit, and especially limit in the rate of growth of consumption. At the same time, well, you need to you have certain periods where you have lack of the labor force, and basically this might lead to a profit squeeze. So these fluctuations that are between having too low wages and too high wages might become more severe for the companies, especially if their potential profit rate is already low, basically. So all of these points make the system more and more fragile, basically. You have more severe crisis, and you have squeezed profit potential. We have seen all of these things in the previous sections, so I hope these are not too complex for you. At the same time, you have two other problems. Well, one is, as the system becomes more fragile, the companies will meet with more difficulties. Basically, the system will create monopolization. You will have concentration of capital. You will have fewer companies, and those fewer companies might for a while make the problem become softer. But in the end, they will make the competition even more fierce, and you will have an increase in the unemployment rate. You need to, as the profit rate gets smaller, as potential, as organic composition rises, as profit rates become more squeezed. In order to make up for rising organic composition, you need to have a higher exploitation rate. And one way of getting higher exploitation rate is, having more global mobility, getting more labor force into the picture, making use of workers globally, especially the segments of the global population which is not part of the capitalist production process. But when you come close to those limits, in that case, unemployment is one way of making sure that, unemployment is one, rising unemployment is one trend that might put pressure on the workforce. And as the system gets more and more, let's say, as the pressures on the profit rate gets more and more severe, well, unemployment rate should be larger and larger, so that the workers will be able to accept lower wages and higher exploitation rate. So to sum up, late capitalism, according to Marx, is associated with higher and higher, more and more severe depressions, falling rate of profit, rising exploitation, rising inequalities as a result, fewer and fewer companies, and higher unemployment. We have seen all of these in the previous parts, but how will everything come to an end? We will discuss this in the coming parts.